Hello, this is Joseph for Zoomer Questions Everything. And today I want to talk about how to think for yourself and some of the most common traps that I see that prevent people from thinking for themselves. The two biggest traps that I see people fall into are appeals to authority and appeals to common opinion. And the problem with these is that they aren't really thinking, so to say, at all, but ways to defer your thinking. And appeals to common authority can be easily understood. I'm sure most people have seen it in their own lives. For example, in a classroom, a teacher asks a question, everyone says the same answer, and then one kid raises his hand with a different answer, and it turns out that the one lone child is the one who's right. And some other easy examples to understand if you look at some of the beliefs in other parts of the world. For example, in parts of Asia, where people believe that things like rhino horns and elephant tusks can cure all kinds of illnesses and ailments. That's really easy for us to understand because it's not a common opinion here in America. But it's the people there believe it. So it's a way that you can see how when everyone thinks something, you can end up agreeing on something that's incorrect. Appeals to authority, on the other hand, can be a bit more difficult when people use media, scientists, teachers, professors, and politicians as a source of truth, but fail to recognize that many of these groups can be owned or beholden to certain agendas that often don't have the best interests of normal people at heart. You can look at how people in these positions present themselves in a professional manner, sometimes with special attire. For example, a scientist's white lab coat is used as a symbol of authority, trying to signal to people that they can be trusted and that what they're saying is correct. It's the truth. But a coat of authority doesn't make the statements coming out of someone's mouth true. It doesn't make them any less human than any of the rest of us. Some easy examples of appeals to authority being incorrect would be if you look at media with stories about Trump and Russia collusion, BuzzFeed saying they have exclusive information that ends up being false. I remember once a teacher telling me when I was young that freeways are called freeways because they were the routes used by escaped slaves when getting out of the South, which obviously isn't true. And then you can look at how scientists have constantly been changing the story for the past 50 years about whether human development is causing global cooling or global warming or now just climate change. It's amazing how many people have never heard of global cooling. It's something I think everyone should look into. And then there are examples where you can see both of these operating at the same time, appeals to authority and common opinion. For example, with Galileo and Copernicus arguing against the church about the nature of our solar system, even though the priesthood had far more numbers and power and authority than either Galileo or Copernicus, it didn't make them correct. Similarly, just because 98% of scientists agree on climate change doesn't mean that the 2% is the ones who are wrong. One of the biggest tells that something has an authority-based deception surrounding it is when people in positions of authority or prestige resort to ridicule or censorship of dissenting opinions. Jokes calling conspiracy-minded people crazy or delusional or too stupid to understand the anointed knowledge of science. Condescending scientists saying that most normal people could never hope to understand or interpret the intricacies of their theories can serve as deflections to distract people from instances where the actual evidence for official narratives can be weak or non-existent entirely. One of the best examples for seeing this that I can think of is stay with me here, with flat earthers. While I certainly don't believe the earth is flat, if you've ever watched the documentary Behind the Curve, you can see that the people who do believe that are out in the field trying to do experiments, doing things with cameras, long distance Zooms to show in a very simple and understandable way that their ideas are correct. And then, meanwhile, the scientists that they speak to in that documentary simply laugh or ridicule them, saying that, oh, they're too stupid to understand these basic models. But they, while constantly belittling the other side of the argument, they don't actually present their own argument. They don't show any evidence, anything for us to look at and see for ourselves, while they rely on their authority, prestige, and university degrees to act as some sort of proof that they're not wrong. All right, so I hope you guys found this interesting or helpful. Please like, comment, or subscribe. If you want to bring any examples of this happening in your own life, anything that I might have not brought up, or if you have any ideas for any kind of future content that you'd like to see, I'm all ears. All right, so you guys have a good day and question everything, because it's a lot of fun.